To some, it is the moment of triumph and adulation. For others, it is the moment where the four horsemen of the apocalypse are coming down the mountain and no one can stop them from delivering disaster. You get to make your choice because Donald Trump is your Republican nominee. So now we can begin, at least unofficially, the serious questions, as if they have yet to be really asked. How does this man unite a political party where a fair number of voters would have to eat ground glass than vote for the person they consider a huckster and a con artist? While over in lefty land, Hillary Clinton is dogged once again by the usual reports about emails, computer servers, and this persistent guy named Bernie. But she's able to laugh it off and move forward, smack dab into a buzzsaw that would like nothing better than to see her drop out and disappear. Your phone calls on these topics, along with anything and everything that comes to mind on what this nation needs to be talking about, but the others don't provide the outlet. We do. They'll be at 1-877-NEWSMAX. You need to get on the lines now. I'm Ed Berliner, and this is The Hardline for Thursday, May 26th, 2016.
The AP has confirmed that Donald Trump has secured commitments from the necessary 1,237 delegates necessary to become the Republican presidential nominee. Now, Donald Trump was close coming into the day, about 28 delegates short, but we've had conversations with delegates in Pennsylvania, North Dakota, and a few other states who were previously unpledged, who tell us that they are now committed to Donald Trump.
The day of reckoning is here, not officially, but here nonetheless. Donald Trump is prepared to descend upon Cleveland and the Republican National Convention as the nominee. Anyone who dares to think about a third party or any type of battle had best be warned that the Donald and his train are more than prepared to roll you over without a second thought, because there is work to be done in America, and the smart Republicans are lining up behind him, or else. It's a little dramatic, perhaps, but the gist of where we are right now. Add to it some battling going on within the Trump camp itself. Republicans who can't stand the nominee still trying to decide what they're going to do come November. And the pro-Trump forces rising a little more each and every day in what they believe is that inevitable moment in getting the key to the front door at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This is where we begin the daily run and gun with the political animal. Your phone calls and comments on what we are discussing here are an integral part of the conversation for the next two segments and the rest of the hour. Plenty of time and space at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Let's now welcome to the Hardline, veteran of the political wars, campaign strategist Salvator La Mastra, joined by veteran political analyst, author, attorney, and syndicated radio host at Ladies Can We Talk, Georgatos. I want to thank you both for joining us. Let's get right to work. Donald Trump is the nominee, according to the Associated Press. He's got the delegate number to clinch the GOP nomination. So, Debbie, does this mean that come the convention now, everything is said and done? And as I said in the introduction here, Republicans better get behind him, because he is now the guy that they are going to have going into the wars in November.
You know, I don't think it means that. I don't think a lot has actually changed since yesterday. In fact, since the day that Ted Cruz stepped down, because he got out of the race because you could see he could do math and decide that he couldn't see a path to victory. But the path to 1,237 has been set for a couple of weeks, and not that much has changed today.
All right. So, Sal, let's talk to you about it, because we know that you are somebody who backs Donald Trump. Why does today's news mean anything whatsoever? Because you and I both know, Debbie knows it as well as we sit here, that despite the fact that he may have enough delegates, there are people who will go into Cleveland and they will do whatever it takes to get him out.
There are people going into Cleveland who still don't approve of Donald Trump, mostly the Ted Cruz delegates. And we have heard that his delegates plan on going in there and changing a lot of the rules, because they are on a bunch of the committees, and the majority of a lot of committees, to change the rule for next time around to help someone like Ted Cruz become president. But going in, the 1237 is a big day because it can officially be said Donald Trump is the nominee. He's not the presumptive nominee. There's no, tricks that can be pulled as of now, and he's the nominee, and that gives him a lot more clout right now, especially when Hillary Clinton is still fighting with Bernie Sanders. The Republican Party is uniting around him. We have our nominee. Democrats don't have their nominee, so it creates, I guess, more of an optics for the Republican Party with the country going into the general election.
Let me talk about optics here for just a brief moment here. Is it not fair to say, in a point of order here, that he is still technically the presumptive nominee because the convention has not been held, the delegates have not been basically authorized at this point? So, Sal, you can say that he's not the presumptive, but fair to say, though, play with the rules. The word still counts.
It's not over till it's over, so you can make that point, definitely. We have to wait till Cleveland, but we do have the pledged delegates, and I think that's what matters right now.
All right, let's move on to something else here because this is interesting. There's now talk about a debate between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. After saying that he would debate Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump came out with a specific set of demands on what it would take to get him on stage with the Vermont senator, and here's what he said.
I said last night on Jimmy's show, it was, a question that was posed, and I said I'd love to debate him, but I want a lot of money to be put up for charity. So what we'll do is if we can raise for maybe women's health issues or something, if we can raise $10 or $15 million for charity, which would be a very appropriate amount. I understand the television business very well. I think it would get very high ratings.
Debbie, what do you think about that when a guy who's running for president says, I want a lot of money to do it?
You know, and I have to say, I think that particular thing was a brilliant stroke by Donald Trump. I think, first of all, he's making Hillary look bad because she won't debate with Bernie Sanders. And it's almost a stunt for him, but it makes Donald Trump look confident. It makes Hillary look weak, and it's all for a good cause. I think it's a brilliant stroke.
Your phone calls if you want to join us, 1-877-Newsmax. Okay, so Jimmy, a stunt then? I mean, or Sal, I'm sorry, a stunt then comes to mind because some people are saying that they're wondering if he's really sincere or he's just seeking to curry favor with the female vote that he needs at this point. And they're wondering, by the way, where the money is going to come from because Donald Trump says they'd have to come up with the money. And people are wondering, does he mean Bernie Sanders? Does he mean the networks? Where's this money going to come from?
He means the networks. I mean, throughout, the many Republican debates we had, he had a lot of demands for a few of those debates, and he wanted money to go to the veterans for most of them. You can characterize it as a stunt if you want. We know Donald Trump needs to do better with women, and it's a brilliant campaign move to get out there and, kind of reach out to women and women's health care and show that he's maybe not the Republican they're used to hearing about in the news who is wanting to shut down, women's health services, but he's going to raise money for them.
Sal, what do you think about Bernie Sanders firing back and saying he hopes Donald Trump doesn't chicken out? Because Bernie Sanders says, I'll be there.
I don't think he will. I think Donald Trump is looking in the long game, and he knows that this will definitely hurt Hillary Clinton because she won't debate Bernie Sanders. And I think it'll make for good TV, and Donald Trump wants that. And, of course, any chance he has to go up against someone like Bernie Sanders, who is similar to Hillary Clinton in many ways in a debate, helps him when you come to the general election debates.
1-877-Newsmax. If you want to join us, let's talk about the women's vote again. Debbie, here's to you. Donald Trump comes out. He takes on Elizabeth Warren again. Now, this is taking on a little bit of a life of its own right now. And I'm wondering how you feel about this, because when he calls Senator Elizabeth Warren a, quote, a woman that's been very ineffective other than she's got a big mouth, when asked about her when it came up at a news conference, he talked about the whole Pocahontas issue again, about her being a Native American, whether she is or whether she is not here. But the fact that he comes out and says that Elizabeth Warren's got a big mouth, how's it going to sit with women who still are on the fence?
It's so funny. It's a strange comment coming from Donald Trump. I mean, you got to give him credit for just saying something you'd be astonished he would say. It's the funny thing. I'm a conservative, and I really want to have a conservative president. And so I wanted someone as our candidate on the GOP side to be tough, to be challenging, to say the things that are politically incorrect. And this particular one, I don't think it's going to hurt him. The voters who are conservative, who want a conservative in there, they're tired of the fact that more Republicans don't point things out, like about Elizabeth Warren, the whole Pocahontas thing. It's a farce she's been able to portray for years and parlay it into a Senate seat. And she's kind of misled people. So I don't think it's going to hurt him with conservative women voters. And the real feminist types are never going to go for Donald Trump anyway.
And I want to also ask this, too, because, Sal, I'm going to come to you on this, but I want to add one more thing to the discussion here with Debbie. Donald Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, came out and said no women or minorities on Donald Trump's vice president list. And he said the reason is that having a woman or a minority would be viewed as pandering. All right, first to you then, Debbie, how is this not insulting and demeaning to women and minorities, but specifically women because there are Republican female governors?
That was a really poor decision by the Trump campaign. This morning there was an interview with Katrina Pearson, who is Donald Trump's national spokesperson, and she said, what was the right message? She said, he's not looking to fill the VP slot, just choosing based on gender, choosing on race or ethnicity. He's choosing the best person. That's a good message. Paul Manafort's message was not. It sounds like a slam to women. And then later in the day, there's a different comment by Donald Trump entertaining the idea there may be women or minorities on his VP list. So I think it's a campaign that hasn't figured out how to communicate very well. And it's a very insulting notion that there would be no women or minorities, especially women, frankly, like the one he just insulted, the New Mexico governor, Susana Martinez, very popular Hispanic Republican woman in a Democrat state. That was a ridiculously silly statement.
Sal, would you admit that this was a mistake, and maybe Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's message gets across. The people who love Donald Trump, they hear him speak, they go right behind him, they don't question. But basically, he needs to tell people like Paul Manafort to zip it and shut up and stop trying to hurt me. Let me go ahead and do this instead of you trying to get ahead of this, because this was insulting to a lot of people. It's unnecessary, too.
It was an unfortunate choice of words to phrase it like that. I think Katrina Pearson definitely fixed the situation, as did Donald Trump. And I think, Manafort comes from, the Bob Dole days and Bush. And so he's been out of the political arena for a while. And so getting him back in and learning how to phrase things and say the right thing, especially in a world now that's consuming political correctness, is a big deal. And I think they will, and they have been correcting these issues. And I don't think it'll be an issue going forward. And I think definitely choosing a vice president based on qualifications rather than, checking off the list with whether it's gender or race is a good message Donald Trump has.
1-877-NEWSMAX if you'd like to join us. 90 seconds in this segment. We're going to come back in the next one. Today, President Obama said other countries, even those critical of U.S. policies, are looking at the presidential race. He's talking about the fact, in the president's words, that the world leaders are, quote, rattled by Donald Trump at this point. Here's what he said.
The world pays attention to the U.S. elections. They pay more attention to our elections sometimes than we pay to theirs. It's fair to say that they are surprised by the Republican nominee. They are not sure how seriously to take some of his pronouncements, but they're rattled by him. And for good reason, because a lot of the proposals that he's made display either ignorance of world affairs or a cavalier attitude.
Sal, we're going to talk about this more right after the break, so let me ask you 20 seconds. What did you think of what the president said, and what did you think about the fact where he talks about world leaders being rattled?
I definitely disagree with the president, and it's something expected. We're going to see President Obama, inject himself into 2016 as much as possible, because that's who he is. He's not going to stay out of it like Bush did. And I think world leaders are scared. They're scared that there's going to be a tough guy in the White House instead of Obama, who travels the world bowing and kowtowing to our enemies.
I think you've got exactly what Donald Trump is going to tell us momentarily, because we're going to hear from him, his answer on this, and a whole lot more. Both of our analysts will take a break. They will return on the other side of the timeout. So will you, because your calls are a big part of this. What you think about what we've talked about, the nomination process that Donald Trump is going through at this point, the women comments that came out today, much more we're going to talk about. 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX, when the Hardline returns. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, our guests in the Political Animal, campaign strategist Salvator La Mastra, along with radio talker and political analyst Debbie Georgatos. Your calls are coming up at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Momentarily stay there. Both of you, I'd like to get to this first of all, because I teased it on the other side of the break, but I want to make sure we balance this out here. President Obama, when he said the world leaders are rattled by Donald Trump came back, of course. He got right onto it, and as a matter of fact, he says, good, I like it. Here's what he said.
When you rattle someone, that's good, because many of the world, as you know, many of the countries in our world, a beautiful world, have been absolutely abusing us and taking advantage of us. So if they're rattled in a friendly way, we're going to have great relationships with these countries. But if they're rattled in a friendly way, that's a good thing, John, not a bad thing.
Let's get the reaction from both of you. Debbie, you first.
The conservative concern about Washington the last 7.5 years is that America looks weak to the world, that President Obama bows to the world. That's why conservatives really wanted to have a strong, very conservative, tough person running for president. I think a lot of us saw that in Ted Cruz and thought you'd have a principled and informed, tough person. But I think what Mr. Obama is saying, President Obama is saying, is absolutely true. The world is going to see us as tougher, and that's a good thing. And Donald Trump's reaction is the right thing.
Sal, to you.
I agree completely. It's the right reaction. I mean, he has said it from the beginning that he feels the United States has been taken advantage of over and over again, not just during the last 7 years, but the last 20, 30 years. And so he has made several statements saying we're standing up to China, Japan, Mexico on trade, foreign policy-wise, not maybe participating as much money defending countries who can afford to do it themselves. So I think it was a good move by Donald Trump, and I think President Obama speaking about especially the American election overseas to foreign countries isn't a good thing at all.
I want the two of you here. Let's go to the calls real quick. 1-877-Newsmax. Ralph, Torrance, California. Ralph, you do believe that the Donald Trump nomination clinch, or at least the alleged clinch at this point, because it hasn't been made official, is great for America. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really think it's good for America. I think we need to get back to our core values. So we need a conservative president right now. I also want to point out that we're in real bad shape if we lose this election to Hillary Clinton, and the reason why is because the Clintons have a clear history of not really caring about the men and women in uniform serving on foreign shores, and even the ones that are non-uniform that work in the State Department. Also, there are people that get arrested for treason because they give information to the Chinese, and yet Bill Clinton, when he was president, he gave rocket technology to the Chinese, and as soon as they got that information, they put it to use and fired their first rocket as a test towards the United States.
All right, Ralph, thanks so much for your comment. We appreciate that. 1-877-Newsmax. Angela from Charlotte, North Carolina. Angela, wait a minute. You're going to put something in here that we haven't talked about yet. You think Bernie Sanders is the best candidate for this country?
Yes.
Why?
I think Bernie Sanders is the best candidate that pretty much, like I've heard, Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line.
Okay.
So basically, they have to pledge. They have to pledge to serve and protect foreign and domestic.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. We appreciate that. All right, we appreciate that. Thought you were done. Sorry about that. 1-877-Newsmax. Let me get to the two of my guests right now. Debbie, what do you think about this? Because the Bernie Sanders-Donald Trump dynamic, that's fascinating to think about here, if you would, for a moment, that the two of them would debate. Because it would seem here you have that clear politician in Bernie Sanders. You have the guy who has absolutely no throttle whatsoever on what he talks about in Donald Trump. Do you think it would actually stay a debate? And who do you think actually would have the advantage?
The last part of your question went out, but on the Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump debate, I was actually hoping early on this election season that Bernie Sanders would win the Democrat nomination, because it's a really healthy conversation, American political conversation about what socialism really is, what suffering it has caused around the world, and we need a re-education on that. And what Bernie Sanders' socialist talk is so off the American playing field, so outside what America is supposed to be. And Donald Trump, on the other hand, has made his fortune in the American dream, in the American free market, free enterprise economy. So I would love to have those issues discussed. I think Bernie Sanders' ideas are dangerous, but it's a healthy thing to get them out there and talk about them. The contrast between those two, just on economics, just on what kind of system we have, what kind of a country we have. Do we have a free market, free enterprise, or socialist? That would be very healthy all by itself.
Sal, I got about a minute left here. I'm going to give you the last word on this. Do you think that Donald Trump would chew up Bernie Sanders and spit him out?
I do, and I think one thing important about a debate between those two would be, because we haven't seen Hillary Clinton really attack Bernie Sanders on his core issues, on how he would afford to do all these things, and really what he is proposing, these socialistic policies. And I think Donald Trump would really be able to stand up to him to really bring out how flawed and how unrealistic all these policies he is supporting and presenting to the American people are, and how they just will not work. And it will kind of be a wake-up call, I think, a lot for the Bernie Sanders supporters who are supporting him to kind of realize, wait, are these really achievable? Can these really be done?
Let's see who comes up with the $10 million, I guess, at this point. That'll be the next thing to worry about. Yes. Debbie Georgatos Salvator La Mastra, I want to thank you both for joining us. We appreciate you staying over. We will talk to you again very soon. Thank you. Your phone calls at 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-Newsmax. After we dig into what has been the Newsmax.com website most of today, the lead, the eventuality of Donald Trump and the Republican nomination. That's where John Bachman comes in to background the news. John?
Now, Ed, if I told you before June of 2016, a year ago, that Donald Trump would have this locked up before Hillary Clinton, what would you say? You probably wouldn't believe me. Well, he's managed to do what basically nobody thought he would be able to do, and that's clinch the GOP nomination, even though it's not official yet. He does have the delegates needed, but there is still plenty of work left to be done.
I won the elections in landslides. We've had tremendous support.
It's not even June, and Donald Trump has already done what many believed he never could or would, officially clinching the GOP nomination. Thanks to a small group of unbound delegates who just decided to pledge their support to the soon-to-be GOP nominee, Trump has now surpassed the magic number of 1,237 delegates.
And I just really appreciate it. We will not forget it.
But the New York billionaire's work unifying the GOP is nowhere near finished, and he seems to be having a hard time laying off the exact people who are not yet on his team. Tuesday, it was New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez.
Your governor has got to do a better job.
Wednesday in Anaheim, he teed off on Jeb Bush, perhaps for old time's sake.
Needs a little more energy.
And then Mitt Romney.
And he walks like a penguin onto the stage. You ever seen?
This while the holdouts of the anti-Trump crowd have started fighting with those who have hopped on the Trump train after promising they never would.
I think it's pathetic. Rick Perry not only called him a cancer on the party and not only endorsed him, but he's basically campaigning to be Trump's vice president.
Trump's meteoric rise to the top of the GOP is due in large part to his status as the ultimate Washington outsider. And as the Washington Post reports, Trump is pressing the Republican Party now to get on board or get run over. There are also new concerns that that joint fundraising deal with the RNC may not be so mutually beneficial after all. And unless Trump can get everyone on his team, the millions of dollars he needs to complete his presidential campaign may go to the other down-ballot races.
All right, now while there are still some holdouts in the GOP fundraising front, Trump did get a close Bush ally to join his team this week. Ed Woody Johnson, the New York Jets owner, who was the finance chairman for Jeb Bush's campaign, is now the vice chair of Trump's fundraising effort. Still a lot of money, though, they need to get their hands on.
An awful lot of money they have to work on. And then again, there's that maybe $10 million coming out to charity, too. Donald Trump loves to talk in millions every single day. It never ceases to amaze us. John, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, Ed.
All right, let's go ahead and get to it. 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. And we've been talking about this all day long. As I said, it has been leading the Newsmax.com website all day. It talks about Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump in a debate. Whom do you think would win that debate? It's very simple. Bernie Sanders is going to come at this. He is the career politician. He is the socialist. He is the Democrat, well, whichever one you want to say that he is. And Donald Trump is the guy who comes in here basically no filter whatsoever. You know that he's going to go on the attack. Who do you think would win? See if you can get him quick enough. Don't worry. We got lots of time for calls until we get to the end of the show. 1-877-NEWSMAX. Bill from Clearwater, Florida. If Trump loses, the country's in trouble. Why is that, Bill?
Well, because he's a nationalist, and as opposed to what we've got dominating in Washington D.C., which is a globalist agenda. Now that's what Obama was basically saying, is that the globalists are worried about what Trump is going to do because he is a nationalist and he's going to put America first. So what I'm looking for out of Donald Trump is an American renaissance, return to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights, and that's basically how I feel about that.
Who do you think would win the debate? 30 seconds between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders.
Donald Trump, definitely, hands down.
I got a feeling that you would say that. All right, Bill, thanks so much for joining us. 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. It is all the talk on the website today, but the one thing that people are discussing that was a misstep for Donald Trump today, and they wish, quite frankly, that he would not do things like this, allow his campaign chairman to talk about the fact no women or minorities on the vice president's list, because he said it would be viewed as pandering. It is not really sitting very well with a lot of women. But then again, there's a lot of women on the right who say we stick with Donald Trump regardless of anything. More of your phone calls on anything and everything in the news, along with a short trip to the nation and their issues no American wants to see repeated here. You might not think about this, but there is one country in South America that right now is in so much trouble. It could indeed have a big impact on America very soon. Stay with us. The Hard Line continues.